I'm actually a local real estate residential specialist, and I'm with Dreyfus Properties here in Menlo Park. I was born here at Stanford Hospital and am actually fifth generation Californian. And I know that a lot of you don't think I sound that way, but it's important for me to let you know that, because I want you to know that I do know my neighborhoods, and this is my home. So there you go, San Francisco. This is where I was born. My mom went to Stanford University, and that's my family. I'm right there. And my dad's job took the whole family to London, where I grew up, which is why I sound the way I do. But I'm back now. And on this note, let me introduce you to Nikki James, because she sounds a bit like me as well.
So you got the funny talking, mumbling Brits today. So I have been in Menlo Park for 20 years, of which you wouldn't necessarily know from my voice too, but have been a resident of Menlo Park since I bought my first house here in 1991. I grew up in England. I was born there, and my father moved this way, so that's why I came this way, and have been here since 1986. I was very fortunate to find the job that I have now in 1991, so I've been doing this for 21 years, and what I do is I help people buy houses. I help you with the financing of houses, but I also look a little bit deeper at your finances and what you can, not just what you qualify for from a lending standpoint, but also what you can afford. So we look at the big picture. Where do we need to get to? Do we have, for younger people, kids, we need to get through college, and for older people, do we, what sort of retirement do we want to look for, and what sort of expenses are we looking? Do we need to downsize? Do we need the equity in our home yet? When do we think we'll need the equity out of our home? And we're going to talk a little bit about that today, and that's what I specialize in, is working with people on, how to manage their finances such that they can have the peaceful life that they would like to have and not be worried on the money side. So back to Siobhan.
Thank you, Nikki. Okay, so now I'm with Dreyfus Properties. Dreyfus is a local residential specialist. It's a boutique. It's very small. I started my real estate career 12 years ago with a very small company called Seville. We got eaten up by a very large national company, which I was with for 10 years, but now I'm back in a small environment, and it's a very specialized boutique firm. I absolutely love it. We have one office in downtown Palo Alto and one office up on Sand Hill Road in Menlo Park. And obviously with real estate, nobody's in the office much because we're out there looking at houses and meeting people. But it's a wonderful place to live. So how did this seminar come to be? I started working and getting involved with this whole concept of downsizing when my father passed away. And we were in the UK, and we had a mountain of things that needed to be sorted out, thrown out, stuff. So I had to help my mother. We had a home for 20 years of stuff, very big, 8 bedrooms, in Wimbledon, and I took time off my life out of work, and I promised my mom I'd help her get back to the States, which is home. So we did that together. It took us a couple of years. I went into semi-retirement. It was wonderful. I loved it. I was never busier and had more fun in my life. We got Mama home, and then I found real estate as a great career. So then my mother unfortunately got diagnosed with cancer, and we had a lovely, wonderful 9 years, but I worked with her all through that time, and I know a lot about some of the concerns facing seniors and some of the concerns facing the downsizing process and the moving. And in my career, I work obviously with the spectrum from first-time buyers right through. We all have different real estate needs in our lives as our lives progress and change, but by far the most satisfying experiences I've had have been with seniors and helping them and their families, trying to figure out what's best for them and how to get the job done and get them to a better place for where they want to be. So I'm glad you're all here, and I hope that there's something I can share with you that might inspire you. So today there's some key elements about the downsizing process. One is that you really need a team of people around you. Don't try to do it on your own. We're going to be touching on all this later. It's really good to plan and prepare for it, even if you're not thinking right now about downsizing, start to think about it. And don't wait for life circumstances to dictate your housing needs. Be proactive and not reactive. And today's focus, we're going to talk about some of the real estate aspects and ideas and options for downsizing. And Nikki's going to focus on some financial forecasting and demonstrate to you the huge power and exciting possibilities of knowing your numbers. That's really where you have to start.
Yes, knowing your numbers is key. And what Siobhan just mentioned there was the other decisions that you have as far as which size house you want, where you want to live, all stems from the numbers. And once you're grounded in the numbers, you can make peaceful decisions in the other ones. And I have met with clients who the story has been not necessarily what you would think is a good story. You have to sell, you need to downsize, you have to move out the area. But once they're grounded and it becomes the freedom, I've seen people, the freedom that they get from knowing that that is what the choice that they need to make, and they leave my office 9 times out of 10 much more peaceful than they came in, even though the answer wasn't necessarily, yes, you can stay in this house and you can stay in this area. So knowing the numbers is tremendously helpful. So we put together a Mr. and Mrs. Smith here, and there are so many different iterations of this scenario that I've done. Obviously, everybody's situation is different. So add a 0, take off a 0. You know, just know that we can work through the different numbers, obviously what's appropriate for you. But we just picked a customer who was living in Menlo Park, and they have a $2.5 million home, which, as you know, isn't an enormous home here in Menlo anymore. And they owe a small loan of $250,000. They did some remodeling work a few years ago, put a loan on it, and that's what they owe. The savings and investments that they have, the gentleman has $150,000 in regular savings and $200,000 in his retirement. So has, you know, put some money aside, but obviously at some point that's going to whittle away. Jane, the wife, has savings of $50,000 and retirement of $75,000. We looked at their current and future income, and of course they're retired. They're 66 and 65 years old, I think was their ages, or 66, 67. So they're both on Social Security, and these are their current Social Security payments. Obviously, we meet with people who have pensions. We meet with people who have more or less money than that. We meet with people who have larger houses, smaller houses, all of the above. This is just to show you the power in the numbers. They have non-housing lifestyle expenses assumed at $70,000, and that may seem high outside of housing, but obviously living around here, traveling, living the lifestyle that they want to live, going to Europe, groceries, that number can get shockingly high. And what I see when I work with people is how many times people aren't so grounded in that number. What they think they spend is just on a regular monthly basis, but it doesn't include amortizing in the new car that we get every 6 to 10 years, or the new roof that needed to happen, or the upgrading in the landscaping, or we needed to retrofit the bathroom to put some handles in, and all the things that happen in our expenses over and above just the regular everyday ones. So that was the example of our client. And I'm going to try and orient you to here, and I don't know that it shows up very well, but this is the summary of what we come up with. And we have, going from top to bottom chronologically, the years that as people go through their life. They're currently 66 and 65. Going across here, we have their income, which is their current retirement income, their current taxes that they're paying, how much their property is costing them, their expenses, that $70,000 I just talked about. And this is how much they're saving, which they're actually not saving because, you know, their expenses are more, as it should be at this age. They're having fun, they're living life, and they're traveling. And then in these two columns, it talks about net worth and their housing. What we're saying here is that they have a current net worth of $2.7 million. Obviously, that's mainly their house and their savings. And as we go down, what our program, what we do with people when we're working with them is show them when they're going to start using their retirement income. And this is obviously right now, they're using their retirement savings. When their current assets run out and they start using their retirement savings. And then what this tells us is it's age 74 and 75, the couple runs out of liquid assets and has $3 million in home equity. This is the big number I always look to down here when I'm working with customers. When are your liquid assets going to run out? When are you going to be forced to sell your home? And this wraps back to what Siobhan said at the very beginning, which is being proactive versus reactive. And if you know when you're going to have to sell your home, you can make choices today versus having it come upon yourself, and all of a sudden we have run out of money. We're not in dire straits. We have $3 million in our home. This is a happy problem, but this is a problem nonetheless because now we have to sell. And the power of doing things without as much liquid cash is it's more stressful. You're also older. You're 10 years older from the 66 that you are now to 74. You have different abilities to be able to do the move and planning the move. And when you're looking at any one of these, no matter how old you are, there's always three main things that people's worries lie into. It's either an emotional worry, a physical worry, or a financial worry. And handling the financial worries means that you can then act in the physical and the emotional ones. Because once you're grounded in the numbers, then you can say, okay, physically, this is what I have to do or what I'm able to do. And emotionally, obviously that comes along, and that's something, you know, that will be wherever you are in all of these three categories. So with this couple, as I said, at 74, 75, they had to sell the house. Then we said, well, what if they downsize now? What if they took their current home and they sold it and they bought a $1.2 million house, which, you know, can be a nice home up in Sharon Park. It can be one of the nice condos around town. There's many options for $1.2 million around here. I meet with many people who their options are we have to move out of the area, but 1.2 is not too shabby around here. What this said was that the couple, now I'm not promising that they would live this long, but the couple could live to 120 and 119 before they would have to sell their house. So that's the good news. And at that time, they'll have $5 million in home equity, and that brings in the other conversation of what we would like to give to our kids. And, you know, obviously, this is where the wealth gets passed on to the next generation, should they choose. And I have people who don't have kids. I have people who have kids but don't really care to pass the money on down. So we work with people about, well, great, go spend a little more, go on vacation a little more. So there's just many different scenarios that we work with, but the power in knowing the numbers has people act. And that's the key to remember. It's just getting that grounding. No matter how little or how much you have, it is always powerful to know these numbers. And as I said, this was a happily ever after one. They moved into their nice $1.2 million house. And as I said, I'm not promising how long they'll live. We have our big family home. We sell that and we move down to the smaller home. And then there's likely to be another step where we move into assisted living or some other scenario where you have one or other of the couple, if there is a couple who needs assistance or help and care. So there's typically, very many times, there is another step. When I'm working with people, if I see the number here in their age being 90, in their 90s, before they would have to sell that last home, we consider that a wonderful situation. Because in all likelihood, yes, and in your 90s, you're going to move anyway. You're probably going to need to sell the house just physically, forget the financial piece, but physically, you're going to need to move into something else with assisted living. So with some people, if they want to get more detailed on that, we'll project out where we think those costs will be, and that would pull this number down. So this 120, at somewhere in the 90, 80s range, we would say, okay, let's plan for X thousand a year in assisted living care, or we want to go into a fully, you know, bells and whistles, $5,000 a month of all-inclusive food, and you name it, and we can plan different ones. And Siobhan has lots of research on the ones that are available around here as far as the costs of, because there's, you know, the Taj Mahal version and there's the, you know, a little bit less. So yes, we do plan on that. In this case, I wouldn't really have a customer walking out with 120, but say, okay, probably let's live a little more, let's buy a little more, let's, you know, budget some other things. The power in knowing the numbers helps you know what capacity you have to act with concerns like that. So if you running out of money in your 80s and we're going to have to sell the house, we know that we don't have a ton of room for many other major things that could come along. So we may say, you know, you're in your 80s, we probably need to downsize a little further because of the what ifs. And the what ifs are some of them we don't know. We don't know what may happen. We will ask people about their family history, longevity, illnesses, you know, so we can get much more detailed in this depending on how much the customer wants to do. But if there is a concern for major illnesses, we look at long-term care insurance. Is that appropriate? And, you know, many times many people have that already, but if you don't, is it appropriate? So there's a wealth of other questions that come into this. This is a simplified version to just give you the example for how knowing the numbers helps you act with all the other things that can come up.
I've actually done this with Nikki James. It's a very powerful, very exciting, very interesting exercise. And she builds in for inflation and a lot of different fun things. So I would encourage any one of you at any point to call her and go and run your numbers and think about it. Start thinking about it now. So proactive versus reactive is the way to go for sure. And like Nikki, I've seen clients who have actually have been forced to sell their homes, and it's not a pretty situation. I much prefer working with people who are thinking forward in the future, and even though it can be stressful and difficult, and you know, a little bit some emotional issues come up, they're in a much better place mentally, physically, emotionally, to make really great, strong decisions. We can help them time the market better. They don't have to sell perhaps when they have to sell, which might be on a down market. So there's some real benefits to being proactive. Nikki also touched on the fact that every situation is unique, like a fingerprint. You've just pushed the button, and I like to work with. I don't do a cookie cutter approach to helping people with their housing needs. Every situation is unique and different, and we handle everything differently. I would like to say as well, if I had $1 for every time I've spoken to people and told them I'm a real estate agent, I think, Lynn, you're one, I'm not ready, I don't want to sell my house. And you know what? I would like you all to know that that's not my motivation in life. I want to be in people's real estate lives. I want them to know that I'm a trusted professional advisor. They can come to me, they can get advice, they can get comparative market analysis, they can get a sense of the value of their home today, and ask me questions about what maybe they're thinking about doing that will perhaps add value to their homes, or what might be something that they might be thinking about doing that will be just, they'll never see a return on their dollar. If any of these things are important, I want you to know that if you have a trusted real estate advisor, you should be able to call them without fear that they're just going to try to sell your house and put a for sale sign up in front of you, because we really want to help people with their housing needs and decisions. Okay, next. So here we are in this great position where we're being proactive, we know our numbers. Now's the time we can be like an artist, and we have a blank canvas in front of us. People are living longer, they've got great quality of life for longer, and we want people to start thinking about creating some of the vision of how they'd like to spend the next 20, 30, 40 or 50 years of their life, seeing if they can get to 120. If you do decide to stay in your home, I know my mother did. She actually did rent a room out, which gave her a little bit of income generation, which helped pay some bills. There are things we can do. We can modify. I can help you if you don't know good contractors or handymen. Grab bars, wheelchair ramps. There's some fun chair lifts, or even elevators can be put into homes to help people to stay in their homes for as long as they can comfortably and safely. Multi-generational living. This is a big thing that's we're going to be seeing more and more of. But I have a client who, her daughter was pregnant, and she said, why don't you move in with me into my home? And of course, the daughter liked the temperature to be a little cooler, and the mother liked the temperature to be a little hotter, so they were always fighting with the thermostat. And the mother just got fed up with it. I mean, she loved her daughter, but it just wasn't working. So she sold her house. We bought them a duplex, and they're living next to each other. So it's perfect. They all have the right temperature. And actually, this might be a good point to let you know we have Sharon Niederhaus here, who wrote a fabulous book on Together Again, Creative Guide to Successful Multi-Generational Living. And we're seeing a lot of people opt for that as a lifestyle choice. And I think it's great. One of the biggest things is, though, kind of like the point with my clients, you really need to have separate entrances and separate kitchen areas, a little bit of autonomy, because it's not really practical to just assume that even though you were living together harmoniously once upon a time, that you can go back that way and it's all going to work beautifully, because times change and people change. So another great one was, again, just like Nikki was suggesting, this couple who sold their Menlo Park home for about $2 million and bought a really beautiful, in Menlo Towers, those are very large units, and they have a great view. They have round-the-clock doormen. They just take off half the year. They pack their wheelie bags and they walk down to the train station, go up to the airport, and they're gone. They visit friends. They house swap with friends of theirs in Europe, and they don't worry about who's going to water the plants. They don't have a garden anymore. They've got a few patio plants. They know that the doorman is there to help their guests and visitors have keys and access to their place. So it's just a fabulous situation. They travel around the U.S. and they visit their children and their grandchildren for 2 or 3 weeks at a time. They can just walk away from this condominium unit and they love their life. It's fantastic. So the other one is consider, if you do decide to consider selling and moving, if that is an option that you want to do, then one thing that's very good is to work with an agent who really has a great deal of knowledge with neighborhoods. And one of the things at Dreyfus Properties, we really pride ourselves on our neighborhood knowledge, because I've shown people neighborhoods and they might have lived here for 20, 30 years and they didn't even know these neighborhoods existed. They're less expensive than perhaps some of the neighborhoods which have the better schools. And of course, the schools often drive house prices. So it's very possible that I could introduce people to neighborhoods they didn't even know existed, and we can get them a lot more bang for their buck. And then let's just say we can transition you into a smaller home that's going to be maybe on a single level or suited to your needs. You can really get creative about, let's just say you're a potter. You can turn one of the bedrooms into a potting studio with a kiln, or you can gut the whole house and make it one big gourmet kitchen entertainment area if you love to entertain. I mean, the beauty is this is going to be your home, your dream home. You want to be able to build your dream home, and you don't have to think or worry about, oh, is it going to improve my resale value? Just do exactly what you want and love and enjoy your home. Another good thing is working with people that know the local laws and rules. Atherton recently changed a law which allowed people to build a secondary structure on their properties. Now, if any of you have a larger Atherton acre, you can actually build your dream house in the backyard. And then what you have with the main family home, if it is larger than you need, you can either rent it out and have income generation, or you could invite your families to come and live in the larger home in the front of the house or wherever it is on the property. And that could be a way to stay where you are, have your dream house, and also have some income generation possibilities. So there is, many of you are probably aware of the property tax transfer benefit available to us, 55 or over, or with a partner of 55 or over. I get very nervous when my clients are trying to do this because it's a one-time hit. There's very strong restrictions and rules around this. It's very doable, but it's important to know your facts. The timing's got to be right. I do have a flyer at the back which gives some information. I really want my clients who do this to know that that's where they want to be, their next place, because once it's used up once, you can't use it again. So it's a one-time hit. So building your dream team, one of my clients, who was actually the trustee on her family estate, she said she doesn't really make any decisions without consulting her team of experts. And on her dream team are her estate planner and her tax advisor and her real estate agent. And we get together and we talk and we help her make decisions that are best and in her family's best interests. There's a lot of things happening coming up upon us. I believe in January we can have now $5 million giving away any adult. So if there's two of you, you can give away $10 million. Until January.
Who knows if it'll change?
We don't know what it's going to change to, but this sort of information will directly impact what you're able to give away. And if you want to work, you do need to work with a team of experts to try to safeguard the assets that you do have. Cindy Hofen is here. Cindy Hofen has Managing Moves and More is her business. I'd like you to say a few words because it's a very important part of this process. I know when some people don't even want to talk to me because they can't even imagine what they're going to do with all this stuff.
My name is Cindy Hofen, my company Managing Moves and More, and we do specialize in this stuff. When it comes time to move, a lot of people become paralyzed because they don't know what the next step is. We specialize in working with seniors, helping you move through that process, creating a floor plan, deciding what you're going to take, setting up your new home so it looks just like your current home, except smaller, and then we help you decide what we're going to do with everything else. And I promise you there's a place for everything, and you can feel good about sending it to these different places, and we can help you with that. But I would just say don't let that stop you from doing the right thing, because there is a solution to your clutter. So I have a brochure in the back, and you can take a look at that, and I'm happy to answer any questions. So thank you.
I'd go further and say don't wait till you're moving. Do it now. Because I'll tell you, you're going to enjoy your home so much more by just having someone. I've got my career coaches here in the audience. She's adorable. She helped me go through my closets over the summer. You know, just get rid of stuff I'm not wearing. And there's benefit to it. Makes you feel better, lighter. Next. Okay, so tax advice. Like I said, I can't give it. But if you need help finding a good tax advisor and you don't have one, we can help you. And as you all know, anyone who owns a home in the Bay Area, it could look like this and it would be worth $1 million. So the dirt's just worth $1 million. Tiny little lots are worth $1 million. So, and if they do change it down to $1 million in January, it's going to be a big impact on people. So the biggest thing that we want you to do is surround yourself with a team of professionals, and don't do it alone. Don't think you can do it alone. I'm sorry? Know your numbers. You've got to know your numbers, which is why Nikki's here, and be proactive and not reactive. And is there anything else? I think that's it. Oh, if any of you want to go to my website, I do have a very nice 5-minute video where I've worked with a couple that lived in their home for 50 years, and we went through this whole process together. They did a box a week. It took them about 6 months. We didn't have a time frame. We just worked patiently with them. And then we ended up selling their house. They got top dollar. They listened to my advice, which was great. They had a wonderful experience. They loved working with me. I loved working with them. So you can actually see it in a 5-minute chunk of what some things are that we do to help people to get to where they want to go.
So the question was, is there a charge for running the numbers? No, what we do as a company is we... The middle piece of what we do is planning with people. That's the bit that we care about, is working with you on your plan, running these numbers, looking at that. What we do for revenue is we have mortgages, and we also help people with their wealth management. That's where the revenue is for us. But we don't charge for planning advice because we don't feel we can give you good advice in either one of those without doing that. So it's what we do for a living. There are some unusual cases where planning is the only piece that you'll ever do with us. And there is a fee-based option for that. But you would come in, you would meet with me, we'd go through the basic numbers, we'd see what your needs are, and we'd go from there, and there would not be a charge for that.
But the one story I thought you might like to hear that I tell inside the book, a family I interviewed live in Atherton right now. It turns out that the parents, grandparents, depending on however you want to talk to them about it, they had their home in Menlo Park. The adult children had their home in Menlo Park. And the parents, all of a sudden, the home in Menlo Park needed remodeling. And they thought, we don't want to have to remodel this house, all the time it takes to remodel and so forth. And the adult children, they were thinking, we'd like to have a bigger place with a swimming pool. So you know what happened? The adult son, or went to his in-laws, married to the daughter of this couple. They're the couple that had the 3 kids. He went to the in-laws and said to them, how would it be with you if we bought a place together in Atherton? And they did. They ended up both selling their houses in Menlo Park, bought a place together in Atherton where a cottage was built for them, the parents, in the backyard. 1,200 square foot cottage. I went and interviewed that couple inside their cottage and thought, I could live here too. I'd be happy here. And then the kids, the parents, the 3 kids, adult parents, they lived in the bigger house. And what they did, the parents, the grandparents, they sold their house. They didn't owe a penny on it. They put down 90% of the down payment on the place in Atherton. The adult kids, 10%. The adult kids, 90% of the monthly payment. And the older grandparents, 10% of the monthly payment. They could afford that. Then the other thing that came up financially, and by the way, it's just worked out perfectly. They've all gotten along beautifully. And they made agreements about, when the kids could come see them in the cottage in the backyard, when they could come in the big house, that kind of thing. Agreements for living together. That's the last chapter of my book. But the other thing is, it's very important to, plan ahead if you can. And it turns out that the couple, the grandma, grandpa, not only had the daughter, they had 2 other kids. So when they combined the incomes to buy the house, they came up with a financial agreement of splitting up the estate later.
I think the whole thing is, thank you so much. I think the whole thing is that there's lots of ideas. Every family can be different and unique, and we can help you come up with some creative ideas, or it might take you 5 or 10 years to figure out what it is you want to do. But don't let that stop you from reaching out to your team of experts and trying to brainstorm and find out and make things work for you ultimately. We're so thrilled you came. Thank you very much.